There was a good example of this in my local area recently. There were reports of the Yellow Man, a lonely figure walking along secluded country roads at night, dressed all in yellow, and he was scaring unsuspecting motorists. The rumour mill and the forums went mad. There were reports from all over, spooky sightings here and there. There was even a video. There was a kind of delighted social hysteria around the Yellow Man, and then we found out that it was someone walking to work at a farm or a slaughterhouse, and he didn't have a car. It's as prosaic as that. Back to reality with a thud. Rationalism knocks out mysticism cold. It's a rude awakening. The Yellow Man reminded me of ghost stories that we would hear as kids. The White Lady and the Phantom Hitchhiker. There was also a story about a girl meeting a guy at a dance, and he turns out to be the devil. Before streaming and social media, these stories were the universal form of entertainment. Some kid would tell this story in hushed tones, and they would have a rapt audience totally enthralled. In telling these stories, we get a glimpse into the society's concerns and anxieties. In retelling them, we create and reinforce a sense of community. These stories also enchant and enrich the world. Going from the stories that we told each other as kids.
So the White Lady, the Phantom Hitchhiker, and the Devil at the Dance.
As children, we were worried about hitchhiking, drink driving, and teenage pregnancy. Key concerns for 8-year-olds, apparently. The Yellow Man phenomenon only lasted a couple of weeks. It would have gone on for years in the old days, and it would have developed its own legend. It's definitely easier to debunk an apocryphal story nowadays, but we still need to tell stories. I love these scary podcasts. Sometimes I feel like I can't fall asleep unless I'm listening to someone recount the legend of the Mothman for the 100th time. I need that, or disquieting statistics about the vastness of space and what a hostile void it is, and then I can fall asleep. I have an insatiable appetite for the spook, and it's not just me. There's a big demand for new spooky tales on a weekly basis. Many of these podcasts are comprised of personal stories from everyday people, and it's funny how many of these tales are just obvious examples of sleep paralysis. Let's take, for example, the podcast Monsters Among Us. When it started out, the host would chime in after the story with a possible rational explanation for the supernatural goings on, but he had to cut it out because he was basically saying this is an obvious example of sleep paralysis after every story, and it was kind of killing the vibe. This is an example of the tension between rationalism and mysticism. We want to understand the world and the universe, but we're also fragile emotional creatures that have vague intuitions of something mystical, mysterious, and potentially hostile. That's why conspiracy theories are so popular. Conspiracies are compelling stories to tell over a drink. In telling them, we share our concerns and anxieties and create a community. But conspiracy theories are dangerous because they're often paranoid and delusional. They're a kind of unhealthy mix of rationalism and mysticism. Most of the time they represent a fantasy that there's some overarching order, that at least someone is in control.
Because the reality of chaos and complexity and instability is too unsettling for the individual to put up with. A couple of other unhealthy forms of storytelling that we're all guilty of include gossip, where we delight in spreading rumors or exalting people and then burning them down, and complaining, where we blame other people and circumstances for our lack of satisfaction. We disown our own failures and responsibilities. Healthier stories to share, and the ones that I enjoy the most, are personal anecdotes, as well as anecdotes taken from history and biographies. Those are the ones that we should celebrate. I also hope that we don't neglect folklore like the Yellow Man. I'd rather listen to a local legend than have some corporate entity tell me the news.
In conclusion, share your anecdotes and your local legends, but people don't want to hear you complain about your family. They don't want to hear about the bad dream that you had, or your mad fantasy that the Jews own everything and control the world.